Today we are going to multiply matrices. These take a little bit more detail and pay attention to the way I set up these problems because the method I use is a little bit different, but it usually leads to long-term greater success. So on these, in order for you to multiply, the columns from your first matrix must be the same number as the rows from your second. So when we're adding, subtracting, they need to overlap completely. When we're multiplying, this is the fact that we've got to make sure we have. If that doesn't work, then we can't multiply them. So let's look at this first one. And when you do this, what I recommend is always dropping your first matrix and expanding when you write the second matrix to where it looks like this. And once you do this, this is something where if you had some bigger graph paper, bigger squared, you might use that. It might help. But your final answer is what's going to be in this orange matrix. And I'm going to show you in yellow all my scratch work, and in white I'll write the answers. And so when you're going through this process, what you'll do is you'll take that -1 from this spot here, and we're going to multiply it times the 3 from out here. So you're going from the outside going in. But so that -1 times 3 plus the -3 times 4. And that will give you a final answer of when you add those. -3 plus a -12 is going to give you a -15. And so that's the only answer in that spot. This other is just the work. And so let's go to the next one going across the row. So my column says 2. So I'm going to do 2 times 3 plus -4 times 4. And when I multiply that through, 6 plus a -16 gives me a -10. And then I go over to the next one. We're going to do the same process. 7 times 3 plus -5 times 4. So 21 plus -20 is going to give me a +1. Now we're going to the next row. Same process. We're going to take the row and multiply it times the column and add each one, the pieces. So -2 and -1 are going to get multiplied together. So -1 times a -2 plus a -3 times 1. So 2 plus a -3 gives me a -1. Next spot, I have 2 times a -2 plus -4 times 1. So 2 times a -2 is -4, plus a -4 is going to give me a -8. Going over, I have 7 times a -2 plus 5 times 1. So -14 plus 5 gives us a -5 here, sorry. -14 plus a -5 gives me a -19. Now going back to the start of the third row, first column, I have a -1 times 0 plus a -3 times 5. Well, anything times 0 is 0. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. Let's do the next one. I have 2 times 0 plus negative 4 times 5. And so anything times 0 is gone, so that gives me a negative 20. Let's do the next one. 7 times 0 plus a negative 5 times 5. And that gives me a negative 25, because that 0 cancels out. So what your answer is what I have there in white. All this other is just the scratch work that I used to create it. It's not actually the answer, it's just the work to go in to create it. Let's do another one that's set up a little bit different. This time we have a single column matrix times a single row matrix. These are some of my favorite ones to do because they come out with a real easy process. We drop that first multiplication, then we set up our grids, and as you look here, you'll see our column times our row gives us just a single spot. So that's just going to be an 8. So 7 times 1 is 7. Negative 10 times 1 is negative 10. Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. Negative 3 times 7, negative 21. Negative 3 times negative 10 is positive 30. Let's do the next row. 5 times 8, 40. 5 times 7, 35. 5 times a negative 10 is a negative 50. And that's your answer. What's in white is your answer, and it is written inside those matrices. Let's try it when we reverse it. Put a single row times a single column. Think about it. Is it going to be the same type of matrix? Answer yes or no. So we're going to drop that first. If you notice, we now have that row being multiplied times the column, and there's not any more spots for me. There's just a single spot that's created whenever I do that setup with the table. So we have negative 1 times a negative 3. And we have a positive 2 times 5 plus 7 times 10. So we end up with 3 plus 10, which is 13, plus 70, which is 83. And that's your only answer, is a 1 by 1 matrix of 83.